Hello everyone, I'm Anandi. In this video, we are going to see what is API mocking and how do we implement API mocking in Playwright using Typescript. The API mocking is nothing but it's a practice of simulating the behavior of a real API by creating a fake endpoints or responses, which will allow the development and testing team to proceed even when the actual API is unavailable or incomplete. So before completion of the implementation, if you want to test the application, then we can do the API mocking. So let me see this in one example. So just I have launched one application, the conduit application. It is more like a creating an article, like a blog we can create it, articles we can create, and against some topic we can create the article. So if I want to create a new article, maybe I want to select under the popular tags, I want to create an article. So in this application, I want to create an article using Playwright, but the Playwright tags are not displayed here, not included. Let me see how these tags are getting populated in the browser. Just launching the application, refresh it. So now you can see what are all the API requests happens in the backend. At the network layer, how many API requests are happening to launch the home page. In this case, tags which has the header. This is the API endpoint. Using a get method, it is fetching the tags. All the tags it is fetching, and as a response, it is listing the list of tags. Now what we are going to do is, we are going to interact at the network layer. Before the page is getting launched, at the network layer itself, we are going to get this request, mark the response, add some data or update the data before the response is sending back to the browser. In this case, at the network layer, we are going to get this request, getting the get request they sending to this particular endpoint URL, and which will return some, which will send some response. So we are going to mark this response. We are going to add some tags. I am going to add a Playwright tag here, which is not actually listed, but the implementation from the API we have to fetch the data. So before the entire implementation, I want to test the application by using a tag, Playwright as a tag. I want to create an article. So instead of waiting for the API implementation to get the data from the actual API, I want to mimic the API response here. This is what called as a API mocking. So we are going to take this example. Just we are going to get the request from the network layer and modify this response before the page is getting launched. So how do we implement this in Playwright? Let me see. So in Playwright, we can achieve this by route method. Route is nothing but instead of accessing the endpoint URL, we want to interact at the network layer itself. We are going to modify the route request using a fulfill method. One option, we can fulfill the response with the required data. We can do it. The next one is route from HAR file, that is the HTTP archive file. See, at the network layer, we can create the archive file, HTTP archive file. What are all the requests it is sending, HTTP request or HTTPS request it is sending, how it is sending, what is the header, what is the detail, what data it is sending. All the details we can get it and store it as a file, HAR file. So we are going to implement two ways. One is using a route method and get the request, fulfill it with some required data. The other one is read the HAR file, It will generate the data as a response as a JSON file. We can modify this, and next time when I'm launching the page, instead of getting the actual response from the API, we are going to read the HAR file and launch the application. In the HAR file, we would have modified the new required data, so which will be displayed on the page. So let us see one by one. First one, route and fulfill. Let us see this example. In this application, the home page, we have the network request, yes, and to display the tag, it is fetching the data from the particular endpoint URL. So for tag, it is using the endpoint URL, base URL, API tags, and get method. Using the get method, it is sending a request which returns the response as a JSON format. Tags, list of tags are there, and the list display. So it is a JSON file, key value there, key is the name, and value can be a single value or it could be an array of value. In this case, it is an array of values are there. Fine. So now what we are going to do, at the network layer, we are going to get this request, fulfill this response with a new set of tags before it is displayed on the page, before the response is sending back to the page. For that, I am going to use the route method, page.route. So which page routing provides the capability to modify the route requests that are made by a page. So once the route is enabled, every request matching the URL pattern will stand unless it is continued, or we have to fulfill, or we have to abort from it. So it will stay alive. Now, in this layer, we are going to replace the tags with the new tag, and I'm going to fulfill this response with the new JSON. Once I fulfill the route with a new JSON, when we try to launch the application, why I have given only slashes? Already I have configured the base URL. So just it will go and launch the application, and we are verifying whether we have the Playwright displayed on the page or not. Just I have given the timeout to wait for to be visible. We want to wait for some time. So here it is a button. It will be displayed as a button. Okay. Here how it is getting displayed? Each element is as a button it is displaying. So we are verifying whether this button with the expected text Playwright is visible or not. Okay. So very simple query using a route method, we have done it. Now I am going to run this code.
So let me run this test and verify whether the Playwright and Mark API tags are listed. I'm going to run this in a UI mode now. It's going to open a Playwright runner. Let me run the test. Yes, so the entire tag list is replaced with our new tag list. So at the network layer, we are updating the tags. So if you see here, the tag where the request, and it is sending the response, and the new response is having the updated list of tags. So using a fulfill method, we have replaced the entire JSON file with a new JSON content. So when I try to launch it, it is displaying it with a new response. So this is one approach, using a route method and fulfill method we have done it. In this case, we have replaced the entire JSON file. The next one is Let me create one more test where we will append the test tags. So, let me create one more test where we are going to append one more tag in the beginning of the JSON array. I have created one more test, mark a tag by appending. Here the same approach we are using. Response route.fetch, getting the JSON. In this case, we are going to add new tag in the beginning of the array. So, JSON.tags unshift. There are two ways. One is the push method and unshift. Push will add it at the end, whereas in our application we have huge list of tags are there. So, we want to verify whether the tags are displayed or added or not. So, we are want to add it in the beginning of the array. So, JSON.tags unshift playwright, and replacing our route.fulfill where I want to replace my response with a new JSON file. If you see in the application, it has a huge list. So, now we want to append in the beginning of the tag list. When you see this in the application, tags, refresh, under tags, see here it has a huge list of tags. So, if I push method will add it towards the end. So, it has totally some 1500 something around tags are there. So, now we want to add in the beginning. So, we are using a JSON tags dot unshift method. Fine. Let me run this test now. Yes, so new playwright got added in the beginning of the JSON array, and at the network layer it was actual request. If you see here, this is the actual response, but we are fulfilling with our new tags. So, which got added, our new tag got added in the beginning, and once it is added, when I try to launch the page, it has a list of tags. It has the newly added tag displayed here. So, this is one approach, route and fulfill method. One is we have replaced the entire JSON file, and the second one is we want to append it with some existing data. One more method is we are going to use HAR file. So, next method is method 2, that is route from HAR file. So, let me see what is an HAR file and how it will help us to mock API response. The HAR file is a JSON formatted archive containing a log of a web browser's interaction with a website, including every request and response. These files are used to troubleshoot performance, loading, and other issues because they capture details like headers, timing, and content. So, this file will have the details about what is the request header, which method we are using, and endpoint URL, which is the endpoint URL, what is the response status, response message, response body, and if the response is having a JSON data, it will generate a JSON file, and all the details, how long it is taking to perform the particular request. So, the entire detail it will give. Now, we are going to generate the HAR file and mock the response, and in the next request, we are going to service our response with the HAR file, newly generated HAR file. So let me start now. Here I have created one more test, record the HAR file. So where I want to record it, we are going to use a method called route from HAR. This is a inbuilt method. So in this method, we have to pass the path where I want to generate the HAR file and in which name I want to generate it. In our case, we want to have a tags list. So the only that corresponding endpoint URL we are using, and we have to pass the flag update true or false. Update true means either it will create a HAR or update the existing HAR file. So now once I have configured, when I try to launch the page, it will create a tags.har under the HARs folder. But before running this, let me see how it's being done in manually. So I launched the application, and at the network layer, if you see, there is an option. Either I can import a HAR file or I can export a HAR file. So manually we can generate it. The same thing we are going to do it from Playwright. So here we have used the method route from HAR, and to generate, create or update a file, I have to use update equal to true. And let me run this. Yes, we have a HAR folder where we have tags.har file as well as the response.json file. If you see the tags HAR file here, we have a huge list. See all the requests at the network layer, what are all the requests, in which browser it is doing, which Playwright version, what are all the entries are there, which request it has confirmed, which is the endpoint URL, and what is the header for this, all the details it is having. And when it talk about the response, what is the response after performing the GET request API? It is endpoint URL, just going and fetching. The status is equal to 200. It is not returning any status text, and it has returning the response header, as well as it is sending the response data. So in the response data, it is storing the response data as a separate .json file. It has generated in the same folder. We have the response file. So we have generated a HAR file, and we are going to mock the data. What data I am going to mock it? I am going to include Playwright mock API. Once added, save the file which got added. Now I am going to create one more test to serve the response by reading a HAR file, updated HAR file. Let me go to our test. Here I have created one more test, read from the HAR file. Now the same method we are going to use, route from HAR. So in the route from HAR, if the specified network requests that are made in the page will be served from the HAR file. Fine. So for that I have to use Boolean true or false. Yes. So previously to generate, we have used update equal to true. Now we want to read from HAR file. So we have to use update equal to false. So when we launch the page, either I can use only the relative URL, root of it I can use it. So I want to verify whether my page has a button, and with the text Playwright mock API is visible on the page or not. Fine. Now let me run this file test. Let me run this test. Going and running read from HAR file. Now new tag got added, that is we have mocked the data in the HAR file, and using that HAR for serving our response. So when you see the response here under the tags response, the body has a newly added tag. So in this approach, we have generated a HAR file. We have modified the data, that is, we have mocked the data response, and we have used the mocked data in the next test to service our response. So in this video, we have seen two methods of mocking API. One is using a route and fulfill method. The next one is using a HAR file. So this feature will be helpful in case if the API implementation is not ready and we want to test some functionality, how it is responding, we want to verify. Means in the early stage of the testing, we can use this, or in the development team also, if they want to verify with the different functionality, or if they want to arrive at a different scenario, if the actual API is not ready, we can mock the API response and either we can do the troubleshooting or testing the functionality. With this, I am ending this video. Thank you for watching.